Yes, welcome back. Let's get started. Right, so we can go through I have three counts, right? The least bearish one, the most bearish one, and then the bull version. So we can go through all of them. So right now, we know that from Jan to March, right, the market did a WXY count to the downside, right, before it had an oversold ABC count to the upside. I know there's a lot of numbers and waves, but that's just kind of for me to understand what's going on. What I want to point out is that right now the market is on support, right, where we were exactly previously. If you move back, you can see this area did hold as resistance, right, before it turned into new support, before the market pushed higher. And right now we're exactly, if I zoom out, you can see we're exactly at that point, right? We're trying to establish this as new support before the market is trying to move over. So one of two things are going to happen, right? This area that I've marked in orange, right? This is going to turn into support and we push higher. Or if the support breaks it open, right? I can definitely see it moving lower, right? Can definitely see it, coming down. You can see this other orange line has held this support and resistance in the past as well. It's the most recent support and resistance, right? On this move upward impulse higher. So I can definitely, right? If you go to the lower time frame, depending on how we open, right? I'm not ruling out the fact that this is a 1-2, this is your 3, this is your 4, and we can come down, for that one more move to the downside before we have that B wave push that I've been talking about, right? This move higher here, what I thought would be the start of a B wave turned out to be a wave 4, right? That happens. Just kind of have to, take quick profits in this market. So anyway, watch out for how we open, right? If we're able to, have a really bullish open, then that could have been the start of the B wave. Otherwise, if we see a very weak open, you can see this is kind of looking like a bear flag, right? So if we break this down, you can definitely see that, let's just say it probably sells off in the Monday afternoon before you have that, turn around Tuesday, stuff like that. All right. And in the next one, which is the more bearish count, as you can see, this is an ABC, which means C waves are, very dangerous impulsive moves to the downside. Even that, you can see that this is a wave 1, this is a wave 2, right? You can see if I fib it, you can see the wave 3 went all the way to the 1.8 fib, and then we're down for the wave 5. So in both cases, right, you can see that I do have it moving higher, right? Wave 2 would be more shallow, right? In this case, I would think the market, pushes at least to 4,500 versus a wave 2, you can see that I probably think it probably only goes as high as 4,474. So that's kind of the difference between those two waves, right? This would be a very shallow push, right? And would become very bearish, as you can see, because the next move to the downside is a wave 3. So it would imply really, really, really heavy selling, right? So you kind of have to watch out to see where we actually reject in the market, right? Versus this, you're likely to have a more higher push, right? A more bigger bull trap before we actually have the move to the downside. So that's kind of the difference between ABC, right, in a WXY pattern versus a zigzag where you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is a more bearish pattern, right? Apart from that, right, I was considering a running flat, but again, you can also, kind of see that this is a very shortened wave to the downside, and this was the start of your 1-2 impulse, in which case you can see it has a little more room to the upside before it does a 3, 4, 5 to, to 5,000. So this is the bull case, right? At this point in the market, this seems least probable, and you kind of have to wait on the bulls, right, to see which way we're going to go. Again, if we can, the first area where I would consider this to become my primary account is if we break over 4570, right? That's kind of the level for the bulls to break to gain the upper hand. Otherwise, as I mentioned, a small rejection here in the bear version or a higher push, right? A bigger bull trap before it gets rejected are kind of the key, kind of the key structures that I'm watching right now. As I mentioned, the bull is still valid, right? You just kind of have to break 4570. So let's go through today's watch list, right? Since I kind of give you my thoughts on what the market would do. So the first thing I have is Nvidia. So it's actually the first stock that caught my eye. I did play it twice, right? And you can see 227 was kind of the area. It got rejected both times. I was lucky enough to sell, the top of these wicks, and this is my third time I'm going to trade it, right? So I'm hoping, right, as I mentioned, one of two things is going to happen. Either we sell off into Monday afternoon, in which case 208 is the area I'm going to watch an entry for, right? Or we have that massive push at open, right? Which will kind of tell you that the wave 5 is over and we've started that B wave to the upside, right? So it's kind of my main focus. If you're a careful bull, right? You can wait, right? You don't have to trade this. You can see this blue trend line, right, has acted as resistance since, 30th March, this downside trend line. So you can just, right, if you're a careful bull, you can just wait for it to break 218, right? And it still has, room to 227 and 246. So it does have a lot more room to the upside. So you can be a careful bull. Let's wait for it to break 217. Or if you see the sell-off, you can, buy the dip at 208, right? And watch to see if it holds a support. Or, you can buy the higher low at open. So it's honestly up to you, depending on your trading risk and what style you want to trade, if you want to take this play. So I had NVDA because I think just based on how much it's sold off, right, you can see that it's down like 27%, right, in a matter of 20 days. So I do think it's going to have that oversold bounce, right, that vicious oversold bounce before we, again, this is just the bounce that I'm looking, which is going to get shorted lower, right? So this is kind of why I want to play Nvidia, because I think it's oversold and it does have a lot more room to the upside. The next one is Apple, right? So again, for Apple, right, same two things you can see, right? We're going to have that one more push to the downside, right? So I'd say about, let's say the next level of support is at 162.53, right? It's kind of where if we have that sell off right at Monday open, right, I would look somewhere in the afternoon, look to buy the dip, right, for a move to the upside, right? My targets are, again, you can see my targets are 170, 173 with time, right? So it's kind of what I have for Apple, right? Apple, as the market goes, as Apple goes, the market goes, right? And it can be the other way too. They're both very synchronized together, right? So which is why if I am bullish on the market for at least a balance into this week, right, Apple will be one of the leading stocks that I look at. So that's the reason I have Apple calls on there. Again, watch, right? I'd say wait the first 1 hour of open if you have a very risk averse profile. So depending on your risk covers, you can kind of time your entry on Apple. So that's the reason I have Apple calls on the watch list, right? The next one is Coin, right? The reason I have Coin is you can see that it's actually in a falling wedge kind of pattern, right? On this 4-hour chart, you can see that this line from Jan has been used as support, resistance, support, resistance, support, resistance, support, right? So right now you can see Coin is pretty much, right, it's trying to find some kind of support on this trend line, which has acted as support in the past, right? So this is kind of what I'm watching for Coin. I'm watching, once you see that this line, right, holds a support, I'm looking for it to go back to the top of this trend line again, right? You can see this is a falling wedge pattern. This could actually be, where Coin actually bottoms and it breaks the trend line and we move higher, right? That's honestly what I'm thinking. But even if you are a bear, right, in a channel such as this, you would expect some kind of bounce, right? At least a bounce to 160, right? If it breaks 160, then we could probably go as high as 198. If it breaks 198, then 252. So those are your levels on Coin that you kind of have to watch out for. So that's the reason I have Coin calls. You can see it has a very nice falling wedge pattern going on there, right? So the next one I have is Shop. So Shop is a very interesting one because I happen to think that it could play out this inverse head and shoulders back to previous resistance at 930-ish. I know this is very optimistic, right? Which is why I want you to take it with a grain of salt, right? As long as this low at, I'd say 560, 550 holds, right? Then I think it can make this C wave move to the upside. But otherwise also, right? I think whether you're a bull or bear, I can see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the downside. So at least a move to 650. Even if I was a bear, I'm thinking, so that's the reason I have Shop calls on there, right? Bull or bear, I think we could approach 650. If you break over 650, 700, then 900 becomes pretty realistic. So that's the reason I have Shop calls on there, right? That's the reason I have it on the weekly playlist. The next one is Pfizer, and I've shown this chart on the Twitter feed as well, but we know that this trend line has acted as resistance, resistance, resistance. Every time we hit the top of this, we go to the bottom of the channel, right? And we can see that even this time we hit the top of this and we had a massive bearish rejection. So for Pfizer, right, I'm going to show you 2 case scenarios, right? One is the wave 2 finished, right, on 14th April. We break support below 52.78, 52.8, right? You can see this is the channel that's holding as trend line. We break below this trend line, you're going to have a massive flush and this channel is going to play out. However, I want you to understand that you could also see where this is your A, this is your B. You could see that, if the market pushes higher, Pfizer could move with it, right? All the way to 54 54.5, right, before it comes down. So you need to be very careful. If it breaks this low at 52.6, right, then you know it started this third wave to the downside. Otherwise, you still have this risk of a C wave and a wave 2 before it comes down for 3, 4, 5. But bigger picture, Pfizer is bearish. So make sure you get your, entry straight. The next one I have is XLU. Right, the reason for that is we know XLU has had a massive move to the upside, and I do have this as a wave 4. You can see it's finished its wave B, and now it's trying for a wave C. So if you can see, if XLU breaks below 76, right, my targets are these fib levels, 75 and 74.2. So this ABC movement is kind of what I'm watching on XLU. And the reason I have puts on this week's watch list, right? The next one is FUTU, right? If FUTU were to bounce, right, it would have had a lot more momentum in the open. But so far, you can see that FUTU is holding this channel, right? It's just, gone sideways in this channel. And it has, right? It has broken down today. So if at open, it cannot break back into this channel, then FUTU would make a really nice, put play, because it's, we know that it has a gap to fill at 26.98, right? So again, same as Pfizer, I mentioned that this too can push a little higher, right, to 35 before it comes down. So your entry is really important, right? You can wait for the push. And when it breaks the channel again, that's a more high probability shot. So what you have to watch is when it pushes higher, right? Does it make a lower low, and does it break this 34 again? If it does, then it's a high probability short to go come, fill this gap fill. So that's the reason I have FUTU puts on there. And the last but not the least, I have Microsoft. Again, same as Apple, I mentioned, I think Microsoft, again, a key candidate if you're bullish on the market, having a bounce. It's again another interesting stock to trade, for a short bounce. You can see Microsoft, if I drew a channel, you can see that 270, what is this, like 274-ish, right? That's kind of the area you can find support. Again, it does not have to come to the bottom of this. It has made a new low. So a bullish push at open would kind of, bring this wave 2 into play again. So that's the reason I have Microsoft calls, right? As I mentioned, watch out for that afternoon dip, right? If the market, is very weak and cannot gain any bullish momentum at open, watch for that wave 5 dip lower, right? In which case, go on your chart to draw supports, right? And you'll find a good entry for the bounce higher. If you see a bullish push, right, watch for the higher low, and you can buy the higher low. All right, guys, kind of what I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next week.